to the 5th annual, no, forget it. It's just a tradition here to have a film music night. Thank you for coming. Please turn off your cell phones. Try not to talk during the performance, except when he's on. Thank you very much for the contributions you have given me through PayPal and tonight. It's all going to pay for these wonderful people, and this is it's kind of touching. Mark Ford, a guy who would come here every single year, he's in Houston, and he's been going through some bad stuff, and he couldn't make it here, but he's okay, his house is okay, his family's okay, and he spent like $1,000 on Peter Hackman's fans of film music because he had a passion for film music, and that's the way you get through bad stuff. That's the way you get through going with your passion, and that's what tonight is all about. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate everybody who made contributions tonight. I'm very long-winded here, and that irritates Bruce to no end, but I still have to talk. Right. So what I decided to do is make this a sort of show and tell that expedites everything. So one thing at a time, I wanted to thank the people that I never get to thank. And the most important guy these series of concerts would not exist without this guy. He's had incredible training. He worked on Broadway with Will Rogers Follies. He was co-chair of the USC scoring department. He knows so much about film music, and he usually forms, these things would definitely not exist without him, and that is Thomas Greep. And he also has piano tracks, a very neat auditioning system for people who want to submit their music for auditioning. So look that up. Oh, but none of that's important because everybody really loves him because he was for twice on Star Trek Next Gen a Klingon musician. And he has his own part, and that is what's important to all these nerds here. I would not know him without Bruce Kimmel, who has been a producer for 3 different record groups. The first one was Perez Sarabande. Yeah! With that, he actually produced a Morricone CD called Once Upon a Time in the Cinema, and he actually did the whistling in there, and he did that last time, so I was always impressed with that. I have Robert Giacco. This guy is Juilliard trained. He's been on Broadway, and I am always impressed with whatever this guy has danced with Sid Charisse. That is Grace, the furthest there, Gene Kelly and Robert Giacco danced with Sid Charisse. Oh, sorry. Erase that. He was in the drama program in Juilliard, so I guess that means it's insignificant. Megan McConnell has been with me the longest of all these people. She's young, she's a screenwriter, she does everything, teaches. She did little night music with East-West Players. I saw her at GSPO doing Sweeney Todd. She's amazing, and she keeps coming back here as a favor to me. I just love her. And this is Sarah Andon, your flautist here, performing in front of, I forgot, 14,000 people, something like that, at Krakow. What you're going to hear tonight, Hamlet, she did in front of 14,000 people in Krakow. Just a few weeks ago, she also did it at the Walt Disney Hall. So that means you would have paid $125 for where you are right now. Exactly. say Gamero is like amazing. Every time I go to the GSPO, if you're watching that orchestra, your eye immediately goes to her because she is so passionate. Her cello playing moves back and forth, and you go with her. Your eye goes to her, and she's the privilege of being the only person here who's actually worked with Morricone and his son. So again, thanks for coming here. Natalie Bonin came here all the way from Canada. This is. You've heard about how Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers used to do everything Fred Astaire did except backwards.
And in heels.
This is Natalie Bonin upside down playing the violin. She, Cirque du Soleil, she is incredibly trained, and she is a composer now, and she is moving up in the world. I am so just honored to have her down here. I love all this people. And our newest guy, who's the trumpet player, who came at the very last second, he's a sight reader, and it's very important for the trumpet player because Morricone's instrument is the trumpet, and talk about emphasis, so you have to be on top of your game. Now, the last one I want to thank is Ennio Morricone, and I could talk all day about him, and as Bruce said, you have already. But I brought it down to like 3 different show and tell things here. This is SCL, this is the Society of Concubines and Luddites. Up until about a few days ago, I had like maybe 20 people coming here. When I put the SCL up there, I have all these people now here because composers are the ones who really appreciate what Morricone does. And I can get that totally from that, and also at the SCL, there's a picture of me in your program with Morricone and John Williams. And John Williams, I was listening to the conversation between the two of them, and it was all John Williams asking Morricone questions about rehearsals and how he does his concerts. And so, and even as he said at the end of the night, he says, "Thank you, Ennio, for inspiring us younger composers." And indeed, he's slightly younger than Mr. Morricone. I just focused on 3 things simply because we're short on time. Morricone is the only guy who cleared out the UN and actually did a concert there. I was there for the next day when he did one at Radio City Music Hall, the UN, and it was packed. That's how internationally known he is. He won the Oscar in 2007 for his Lifetime Achievement. Only 2 composers in the entire history of cinema has done that. That's Alex North and him. And then a couple years ago, he ended up being the only guy by himself to have won a Lifetime Achievement in composing and a regular Oscar, so he's by himself. And as an example of exactly how Morricone works, he has written like 400 to 500 scores all by himself. He likes to do all his orchestrating. I found this soundtrack. This was around the world with the lovers of Pene. We actually did this 2 years ago. Here, the song, and he couldn't have the time to write the score, so he gave it to his friend Alessandro Alessandrini, but he agreed to write the main theme. This complete soundtrack I got finally, and there's 2 CDs. One has the entire score, and the second one has his contribution, which is 11 different versions of that theme that he wrote. Some of them 5 minutes long. I listened to all of them. They are totally different. He only agreed to write one thing, and he gave them everything. And every one of them emphasizes choral or different things, so that they're totally, he's a workaholic. He does everything to the max. And the best proof of this entire thing is to listen to what's going on next here. And as just before he totally erupts in absolute rage about how long I talked there, here is Bruce Kimball.
I'd like to thank Henry for keeping it short. I think short and Henry Stanley is an oxymoron. So, how nice to see all of you. How are you doing, everybody? Welcome to what has become Henry Stanley's annual faux Hollywood Bowl film music concert, which is actually how Henry likes to celebrate his birthday. I like to celebrate my birthday by looking in the mirror to see if I still have teeth. And that's how we differ, Henry and I. Anyway, when he began this series of concerts, he came to me and asked me if I would do a running commentary to give a little historical context and a few details about the selections we perform, like I do every month at the Kritzerland Cabaret Show, which we've been doing for 7 years. We just did our 80th show last night. Thank you so much. So I said yes, never imagining that I would still be here doing this 4 years later. Now, for those of you who have not been here before, I always have to explain that I am elderly and I must read from the paper, because if I don't read from the paper, I might start doing selections for my new musical review about Vladimir Putin, which we call Putin It Together. Thank you. We don't allow groaning here at Henry Stanley's, but it's got a great opening number, that review. We do Putin on the Ritz. Fantastic. Anyway, when we began this film music concert thing, the first one was devoted to the music of Elmer Bernstein and Jerry Goldsmith, two of my all-time favorite composers. And then the following year, we did an evening of Ennio Morricone. And then last year, we did an evening of Star Trek music, but the Klingon wasn't here for that. So this year, Henry decided he wanted to do a sequel to the Morricone evening, which we're calling the sequel to the Morricone evening. And now I have to read from the paper because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Anyway, as you know, Henry loves Morricone. He is obsessed with Morricone. If you go to the Film Score monthly message board, his username is Morricone. This is true. Anyway, he has personally chosen every selection you're going to hear tonight, and you're going to hear some lyrics in all kinds of languages except Yiddish. However, I'm going to do my entire commentary in Yiddish, so we're covered. So anyway, let's just get this show on the road, shall we? And for the opening number, this is from a movie called Uccellacci e Uccellini, which is, for some reason, Hawks and Sparrows in the United States. And this is the main title song in which all of the film credits are sung to Morricone music. And this was 2 years before Harry Nilsson did the same thing for Otto Preminger's Skidoo. So here to sing the film credits from Uccellacci e Uccellini, which is what I had for dinner tonight, by the way, set to Morricone music, please welcome Robert Iacco.
Be afraid, be very afraid. Alfredo Bini presenta la sorda tutto l'umano, tutto il mato, tutto l'umato, tutto nella storia Uccellaccia Uccellini, raccontata da Pierpaolo Pasolini, con l'innocente col falsetto Tavolini e Lietto, trovati per le strade del mondo tutti attratori, da Femi, Venusi, Vittorio, Vittori, everybody! Nel triste girottando, nel lieto girottando, Luigi Scatenocce, architetto, Gianillo Donati a Consiglio, Nino Bonali, Matori, Mario Bonanno, Tino Iatecoli, fotografo Fernando Franchi, organizzò Sergio Chiti, sa filosofaiato. Una piccola truppa, pelle cofrione, vagabando. Per campagne e passelli si scannò, producendo la sua posizione. Alfredo Bini, dirigendo la posizione. Pierpaolo Pasolini.
It wouldn't matter, he could just sing anything. Robert Iacco, of course, is from a long line of Italian family members, the Iacolinis. Next we move on to a 1979 Italian-Japanese co-production called Dedicato al Mare Egeo, which, if I had to hazard a guess, might translate as Dedicated to the Old Horse. I don't know what this is. This film was directed by Masuo Ikeda and starred Ilona Staller, Stefania Cusini, and Olga Carlotto. And I don't know about you people, but I never miss an Ilona Staller, Stefania Cusini, and Olga Carlotto film. Now, Ilona Staller was a very famous Hungarian-Italian porn star. I'm telling you, you don't get this kind of information at the Hollywood Bowl from David Newman. Her breasts, in fact, were the first to be bared on live Italian TV, and she was also a politician. Mr. Morricone would seemingly score any kind of film thrown his way, but it's amazing how good his music always is, and even more amazing that I had and owned all these soundtracks when they came out on LP. Here to do the main theme of this Italo-Japano motion picture starring a Hungarian-Italian porn star and politician is this wonderful man on the piano, Tom Griepe, and Natalie Bonin on violin, Circe Diaz-Gamero on cello, and Megan McConnell doing the vocalese honors. Morricone's most popular scores was for Giuseppe Tornatore's 1988 classic Cinema Paradiso. That film was originally released in Italy with a running time of 155 minutes, but did not well at the box office. So for its international release, Tornatore shortened it by 30 minutes, and the result was a smash hit everywhere. That version won the special jury prize at the Cannes Film Festival, and it won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film. Of course, for home video, its director felt compelled to create a director's cut, and that thing runs 173 minutes. And believe me, I have seen all three cuts, and longer isn't better, at least not for me. On Rotten Tomatoes, this film gets 90% fresh. Of course, I find Rotten Tomatoes 100% rotten, but that's just me. Here to play the wonderful theme, Toto and Alfredo, is once again our amazing trio of Tom Griepe, Natalie Bonin, and Circe Diaz-Gamero. Now, next up we have the theme from a 1975 movie. Anybody remember 1975? Called Per l'Antiche Scale, which translates as Down the Ancient Stairs, and Henry even has a poster from it right there. Down the Ancient Stairs. The film was directed by Mauro Bolognini and starred the wonderful Marcello Mastroianni and Marta Keller. On the IMDb, the plot description begins this way: a mental hospital somewhere in Tuscany. Now, I tell you, trying to research these films, I feel like I'm in a mental hospital at Henry Stanley's. But there is so little information available about any of these movies, so I make up things as I go along. Frequently, all you find is a mental hospital in Tuscany. The advertising tag, but I did find the advertising tagline for the film, which is the sensual, the tortured, and the obsessed. I would have just called it the good, the bad, and the ugly, but that's another story. The music is Morricone, it's prime Morricone at that, and so here to do the theme from Per l'Antiche Scale is Tom Griepe and the wonderful Sarah Andon. can play that flute. Our next selection is from the 1971 French film Le Casse, The Burglars, which starred Jean-Paul Belmondo, Omar Sharif, and Diane Cannon. It was directed by Henri Verneuil, and it was based on a novel by David Goodis, who had a lot of great movies made from his books, including Dark Passage, Shoot the Piano Player, and Moon from the Gutter. The film was a huge hit in France. In fact, it was the 6th highest grossing film of that year, but it did very bad business in the US. Now, interestingly, the film was shot twice, once with the cast speaking or mouthing French dialogue, and once in English with them speaking or mouthing English dialogue, with the actors doing back-to-back takes. Now, similarly, Morricone wrote 2 scores, one in French and one in English, which we have put together for you. You're buying this, I can't believe you're saying it. We put it together tonight in one altogether new language, which we call Frang. Here to sing a song from La Casse, The Burglars, is Megan McConnell.
C'est gentil qu'elle a volé mon cœur et depuis j'aime bien le voler. Pavé, appris, je connais un volet, c'est gentil qu'il a volé mon cœur et depuis j'aime bien le voler. Pavé, appris, je connais un volet, c'est gentil qu'il a volé mon cœur et depuis j'aime bien le voler. Je connais un voyage si gentil qu'il a volé mon cœur et depuis j'aime bien le voyage. Je connais un voyage si gentil qu'elle a volé mon cœur et depuis j'aime bien le voyage.
Megan McConnell and Drew Nimmer on trumpet. Almost hit him in the mouth, folks. That would have been good. Now, we have a song from a motion picture documentary called E Malamondo. In the US, it received a brilliant new title, Malamondo. It was about 60s youth, something I know all about since I'm in my 60s and still retain about 4% of my youth. Anybody here a youth in the 60s? Do we have any former hippies here? Good for you. Glad to see you. You wild kid, you. For this film, Morricone wrote a really, really super beautiful theme. So beautiful, in fact, that it had an English lyric put to it by a lyricist named Alan Brandt, who just happened to be the lyricist for the very first song I ever learned how to play on the piano, a beautiful song called That's All. It had a beautiful recording here by Astrid Gilberto, which I owned on something called an LP, and I actually, at 15 years of age, purchased the sheet music to this and learned how to sing it. Henry loves this song too, and he asked my close personal friend, Guy Haynes, if he'd sing it for you tonight. But Guy was going to be here to do it, but he had another engagement at a rival Morricone film music event. doing his famous rendition of Jew La Testa, the testy Jew. So I hope you don't mind if I fill in for it. Funny how love can be. Funny how you wanted me. I dreamed of holding you. Funny how my dream came true. Funny thing, I should choose you. Never thought I'd lose you. Funny how dreams can die when someone tells you goodbye. So funny that I could cry. Funny, funny, funny world. To one of the many giallos that Morricone scored, this one called Cosa avete fatto a Solange? What a fatty was Solange? Not really, not really. What have you done to Solange is the actual English of that. It also had various other titles, such as The School That Couldn't Scream, Terror in the Woods, and my personal favorite, The Rah-Rah Girls. I'm not making this up, folks. It was an Italian-German co-production from 1972, directed by Massimo Dallamano and featuring an all-star cast, including Fabio Testi, Karen Ball, Joachim Foxberger, and Claudia Boutenuth. Now, those aren't real names. They are real names. This is the cast, folks. The film is now considered a classic of its genre and is available on the Blu-ray. And of course, it features another great Morricone score. So here to do the theme from What Have You Done to Solange, here is Tom Greep on piano and Drew Ninmer on trumpet. and Greek on the piano. Klingon. Next up, we have two Morricone songs from spaghetti westerns. How many here have seen a spaghetti western? Very good. These two were called Una Pistola per Ringo, or A Pistol for Ringo, which was released in 1965, directed by Duccio Tesseri, and which starred Giuliano Gemma, who in the film was actually billed, thank God, as Montgomery Wood. Then we have the sequel to A Pistol for Ringo, which was called Il Ritorno di Ringo, or The Return of Ringo, once again directed by Duccio Tessari, and once again starring Montgomery Wood. To sing these two Spaghetti-O songs with gusto and a hint of marinara, here's Megan McConnell and Robert Yacco.
You must tell me. You must remember who I am. If you see a man with darkest eyes and ragged clothes walking through your village, don't shoot him, but go beside. I'm that man, and now I beg you, help me. I need you. My sweetheart that I was dead. To take my place he shall pay for this space life. Those who saw me as a round-town man, those who tried to destroy all our world, shall leave forever our beloved land. Because we are fearless men. Because we are fearless men. Because we are fearless men.
But whenever Ringo laughs, Ringo fired.
Robert Yacco and Megan McConnell. Now we go to 1990 and Franco Zeffirelli's film of William Shakespeare's Hamlet, which starred Mel Gibson in the title role, along with Glenn Close.